Anna and her family were forced out of their home, off their land, and away from their friends, their schools, their church, and their main source of income. They lost it all to make way for an all-white school and public park for the burgeoning white community of Chevy Chase.
In the early 20th century, developers and white citizens associations in Washington, D.C. used racially restrictive covenants to prevent Black residents and, in some cases, other groups from buying or even leasing property. These racial covenants determined who could and who could not live in neighborhoods across the city until 1948, when the Supreme Court ruled them unenforceable. But the impact of legal segregation in the nation and its capital was far from over. I'm former D.C. Mayor Sharon Pratt, and this is D.C. Divided: Segregation in the nation's capital.
I'm Jocelind Julien. I am the fourth great-granddaughter of Caroline Branham, a woman enslaved by George and Martha Washington at Mount Vernon. Caroline lived and served in Washington's home for most of her life. Then, upon Martha Washington's death, she was uprooted and sent to live at Arlington House with their grandson, George Washington Parke Custis, with whom she bore children. Caroline did not have a say in where she was to live, what clothes to wear, or whose children she would bear. Caroline's great-granddaughter, Rosa Branham, my great-grandmother, was born in 1882 on her family's land called Guy Henry Tract, located outside of Arlington House in Virginia. In the latter 1800s, after her mother's death, Rosa, her sister Sarah, and her brother Guy were sent to live with her aunt and uncle, Laura Henry and Robert Dorsey, on Broad Branch Road in Dry Meadows, Chevy Chase, D.C. In 1883, my family lived in a tight community, a tight Black community, in a single-family house built by Robert Dorsey. Aunt Laura owned and operated a community store selling produce, chickens, and eggs and other wares that she raised on her farmette, as she called it. Rosa and her siblings went to school, worshiped, worked, and played with their friends on their land. Rosa met and married Richard Shorter of Rock Creek Ford Road, just down the road a bit, and both lived at the house on Broad Branch Road. They worked alongside Aunt Laura and Uncle Robert and raised their own family. My grandmother, Anna Shorter, her daughter, was born and grew up on Broad Branch Road with a great sense of pride in her home and community, so much so that she used her camera to chronicle her everyday life. In 1931, however, all that changed. Through eminent domain, Anna and her family were forced out of their home, off their land, and away from their friends, their schools, their church, and their main source of income. They lost it all to make way for an all-white school and public park for the burgeoning white community of Chevy Chase. And according to the Evening Star, March 4th, 1931, and I quote, "The district commissioners yesterday approved the purchase of a lot of land improved by a frame dwelling adjoining the Lafayette School, now under construction at Broad Branch Road and Oliver Street. The house is occupied by colored tenants, and in explaining the reason for the purchase, Assistant Engineer Commissioner H.L. Robb wrote, 'The presence of this house, with its colored occupants, so close to a white school is a source of possible friction that is thought desirable to remove.'" To give a better picture of what our families were up against, I'm borrowing text written by Corey Shaw, co-founder of Black Broad Branch Project. He writes, "The Chevy Chase Land Company's founding in 1890 by Francis Newlands marked a significant moment in the development of racially segregated communities in the United States. Newlands, having gained wealth during the gold rush in Nevada, utilized his resources to create a suburban area built to the exclusive benefit of white residents, aiming to construct a racially exclusive community just outside Washington, D.C. As Chevy Chase, Maryland grew, the land company shifted its focus to surrounding areas, primarily on the other side of the D.C. border. As the Chevy Chase Land Company purchased thousands of acres of land in Washington, D.C., the land that was historically used for plantations across the street and behind the homes of the Branham, Dorsey-Shorter, and Pointer Harris families began to be divided into single-family lots by private owners, many of which included racially restrictive covenants that barred Black individuals from purchasing or residing in those homes. By 1928, the situation reached a pivotal moment where the largely white enclave surrounded the village of Dry Meadows. In tandem with this pincer maneuver, the community began lobbying the federal government for a park and school for the community's white children. This historical context highlights the systemic practices contributing to racial segregation in suburban development and the lasting impact of such policies on communities. And shortly before my grandmother died at 102, she begged us to take her home. When asked where home was, she simply replied, Chevy Chase.